Welcome back to another program of Reflections with Mary. We're very happy to be here with you today to start a new series which could be easily called Mastering or Overcoming our dark side. And why is overcoming our dark side so important? Because as humans, we have desires. And all those desires we have, they don't necessarily mean that these desires are according to noble, good, lofty things. Sometimes we have inordinate desires, and those manifest themselves as forces that are going to bring us towards sin. And we cannot blindly trust ourselves, because after original sin, unfortunately, our vision is clouded. And being clouded, we have troubles envisioning exactly what our soul needs. And so that's why we need so much devotion to Our Lady, in order to be able to see clearly, to ask graces, to see clearly, and also to get rid, or to combat, or to fight back, or to overcome this dark side present in our soul after original sin. Now, Professor Plinio Correa de Oliveira, in his work Revolution and Counter-Revolution, he explains that there are two forces that are collaborating, put it this way, in order to bring contemporary man to its perdition. And those are pride and sensuality. Now, Dr. Plinio's work, being only an essay and being very short, allows us to expand into libraries and libraries about history, morals, and many other consequences that the short statements in his book would allow. So I would like to propose today, in the program where we talk about Our Lady from another perspective, we realize how much in need we are, and from there we build our devotion towards her. So pride and sensuality can be expanded, and today we're going to talk about in this series, we're going to talk about 4 isms, right? And those isms are 4 big words that we tend not to relate to our personal life, but surprisingly, they may hit us very close. And when we start decomposing, when we start taking apart these terms, we're going to realize that they have a lot of consequences for our spiritual life. So, in this series, we're going to talk about individualism, hedonism, minimalism, and relativism. And those isms, as you can see, sound remote terms that don't have barely anything to do with our life. But when we start to study them, you're going to see how many consequences they have for our daily practical life. And then we're going to realize, of course, being things so dark, how much we need devotion to Our Lady, how much we need our prayers to overcome that. So the very first term I would like to delve into is individualism. Individualism is the creed of the selfish people. The philosophy of individualism is selfishness. And why? Because when a person is individualistic to the point of forgetting others, to the point of forgetting what a person would need to improve for the benefit of his soul, it becomes so closed in and so clouded that there are 4 fruits that are very unexpected and yet very profound and damaging for our spirituality. The 4 are greed, selfishness, isolation, and exploitation. And someone would say, but again, Brother Gustavo, these terms are very, very vague. I know. That's why you're here patiently listening to what we have to say. So allow me to go into each and every one of them. Individualism, there is no commandment that says that to be individualistic is a sin. Looks like a psychological trait. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have an application. Because when we are selfish, we become greedy. And greediness here is not specifically into being stingy or to being attached to money. Greediness means that we transform ourselves in a sponge, absorbing constantly everything that has to do with us, with our egoism, with our selfishness. Can apply to money, of course. The inordinate desire to accumulate money and riches, but also applies to the inordinate desire to be constantly thinking about ourselves. If it is for my advantage, perfect. If it's not for my advantage, forget that. So that greediness is one of the most damaging bad fruits for family life. Greediness is the worst fruit, if you want, for a spiritual life, because it stops our capability to be generous and to be disinterested. Everything is about self-interest. Everything is about what's in there for me. So it's undoubtedly a manifestation of pride. The next one is, of course, selfishness. Because a selfish person only cares about the personal consequences, and that's it. Everything else becomes a secondary cause, becomes a secondary issue. They don't care. Selfish person is a person who only cares about his own promotion or her own promotion. But the next is quite unexpected, is isolation. Why isolation? Because when a person is so selfish and is so greedy, repels the others. The others don't want to be around that person. The others don't want even to suffer the presence of that person. Why? Because so much pride and selfishness repels others. And sometimes we have people who say, oh my goodness, but why people don't talk to me? Why people don't want to be with me? Why are they so antisocial? Have you paid attention on the way you act? Because that could speak volumes. Who wants to be around a person who is selfish? Who uses I, myself, and me all the time? At a certain moment, 5 to 10 minutes after, people just simply leave. So isolation is one of those bad consequences of this individualism, the creed of the individualism. But probably the worst and most unexpected is exploitation. I'm not talking here about human trafficking. I'm not talking here about making children to work for your own greed. No, exploitation means that a selfish person becomes crafty and starts using the others for his own or her own benefits. And that is a trait that is destructive. Because St. John Bosco, for instance, used to say, when you're educating people, the spring that is going to make their souls open to the teaching and open to good things is love. But when a person becomes so greedy and so selfish, what is going to happen? The person starts using the others for their own purposes. So this exploitation doesn't mean work loss, but means using others to promote myself, using others to maneuver them in order to get what I want. This maneuvering, these little politics that are going to improve the positioning of my family or the positioning of my children, which in the end are an extension of my pride. Because if I love my children is one thing. If I love my children for the love of God is one thing. If I love my children for the love of myself, I'm being proud. And therefore, all these mechanisms become unholy. So it's so important to be able to realize that individualism has so many tentacles to bring us to hell, to bring us to our final perdition. And we need to study those. May God forbid, but if they are present in our soul, we need to cut those tentacles. How? And here we go, through devotion to Our Lady. If there is something that is the opposite of Our Lady, is individualism, is selfishness, is greediness, isolation, selfishness. None of those fruits were ever present in the soul of Our Lady. Such a mother that said yes to the incarnation, such a mother that is ready to care for each and every one of us, a mother that, if we put together all the love that existed from all the mothers that existed before Our Lady, and we put together in a recipient, if you want, all the love of all the mothers that exist until the end of the world, we put all of those loves together, they cannot be compared to the love that Our Lady has for each and every one of us. That's generosity, that's unselfish love, that's a kind of generous love that does not have any boundaries. And she's ready to attend us anytime. Remember, most gracious Virgin Mary, that never anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought an intercession was never unaided, was never unheard. So, let's have that in our minds, in our souls, and if for some reason we come to realize that these tentacles are present in our soul, no worries, don't get discouraged. Let's ask Our Lady that she is going to perform a miracle that could be compared probably to the miracle she performed at the wedding in Cana. She's going to transform our water, and our water, if it were at least clean, but probably our soiled water, into the best wine that ever existed. Let's continue praying to Our Lady. Let's continue thinking about these things, and I hope to see you next time when we're going to deal with the next of these isms that are so unexpectedly useful to understand where we are in our spiritual life. The next one is hedonism. Hope to see you soon. Salve Maria.